For those of you that I haven't met, my name Sego Sewagwego, Heather Ni Ungat, Ganiga Haga, Niwago and Joden. So my name is Heather George. I'm a member of the Indigenous Heritage Circle. I wear a lot of other hats as well. I got my start in culture and heritage work as a frontline interpreter and an education guide. And one of the parts of my work that has been very significant and important is the side of the work that we would probably call methodology. So what is our way of actually doing the work that we're doing, and what is the thinking that is going into that? So the first thing that I need from everyone is we're going to be engaging in a process called Circleworks. So instead of us doing all the talking, you will get to talk to each other again, but you will actually have some work to undertake. And so I need folks to conglomerate a little bit more so that you can do some group work. I know we love group work. We're essentially asking something of you. So the Indigenous Heritage Circle is asking for you to do some work today that will help us in our long-term work.
Does this work in terms of table groupings?
Table groupings, yes please. Yeah, so of course, as a bit of a background to this, we've spent a lot of time over the last 2 days talking about the work of IHC, our UNDRIP report, what this actually looks like in practice. And so now the goal is for us to think about how we're doing this work. What are some of the barriers? Sure. So if at your table you could assign someone to be a note taker, or someone hopefully volunteer for that, that's a role that we need. We're not gonna watch an hour-long video about this. So, right, yeah, so circle work is a concept that comes from Fyre Jean Graveline. It's a concept around it's a classroom practice, essentially, and it looks at sort of a holistic approach to engaging in conversation within classrooms. I'll play a little bit of this video. I won't play, as I said, I won't play the whole video, but please, I do encourage you to look this up on your own time. Within circle work, part of the process is active listening, and giving people individual autonomy and essentially a platform without interruption. So instead of going back and forth across the table or engaging in that type of conversation, with each question, we ask that one at a time, you go around the table and provide your input to that question. If we get through all 3 questions, you can start over again and redo it again. You can come back to those questions. But I'll play a little bit of this video just to give you a little bit of the background, and then I will display what the questions are.
And how you can actually implement some of these ideas into your classes or your context or your situation that you find yourself in. So with that, we'll get started. And like I said, just feel free to type away in the chat if you have any questions along the way. So the focus of today is just talking about a concept of many concepts and ways of knowing about Indigenous pedagogies, teaching and learning. But one foundation that all of these things kind of can stem from is sharing circles, or just circle work, sitting in circle together and sharing ideas and concepts and learning that way. So that's the focus of the presentation, but within that you'll see there's many different ways of knowing and different cultural understandings and contexts that you can draw from and learn about. So this is a lot of the concepts are taken from Circleworks, Transforming Eurocentric Consciousness, which is a text from 1998, believe it or not, from Fyre Jean Graveline. She's an Indigenous person, Métis from the Plains, I believe, and she talks a lot about circle work and how you can use circle frameworks to understand decolonize and how to promote Indigenous ways of knowing and being, and then also think about our own positionality, our own constructs of culture, of race, of identity, and all of those things. She really takes on a lot in this book, and it's a really pivotal work, and it's really informed my practice as an educator. A lot of these concepts too, I've experienced culturally as an Indigenous person, as a Mohawk woman, but it's nice to also have the literature to support and some really higher level thoughts around them too. So I would really recommend that book, and I have a picture of it at the end of the slideshow to show you as well, so that you can know what it looks like and maybe pick up a copy if it's still in print. I hope that it is. So with that, you can't see these circles very well probably, but I'll go through each little rectangle in the circle is a concept that we'll be speaking about. So the first one that comes up or in the circle is respect. So in many Indigenous contexts, it's rooted in it's rooted in a sense of oneness or equality. So a great respect for all living things, a sense that all living things are equal. So our status or our state in life is not something that must be earned or obtained. It's something that we're innately born with. We're all considered sacred. We're all special, and we're all unique in our individual gifts that we have, but collectively we can draw upon those things as our strength and as our way of connecting with each other. So as Haudenosaunee peoples, my peoples, we're taught to give thanks and show gratitude for all forms of life and aspects of creation, because we rely upon all of those things for our survival. So we have to maintain humility, be humble and grateful because of our own vulnerability without the rest of creation and the gifts that Mother Earth provides us with. So all of those things are constantly working in ways that we may not even fully understand, but they support our life here on Earth, and they're gifts that we were given originally by Creator. So another important feature of culture, but also an important part of sharing circles or teaching and learning, is balance. And this concept of balance it can mean many different things in different Indigenous contexts. In the Haudenosaunee worldview and cultural context, balance can often include balancing aspects of self, so emotional, spiritual, physical, and mental ways of knowing, doing, feeling, believing, understanding, and relating. Some groups, mainly Anishinaabe and other groups, will conceptualize that with a medicine wheel. Haudenosaunee peoples don't usually use the wheel structure, but we do talk about those four directions and the four realms of self. And it's not generally in a circle framework, but you can see the circle in our dances. In ceremony, a lot of things are done in circle. Longhouse is obviously rectangle, so sometimes the circle is more of an oval when you're in a longhouse. But also the longhouse structure is the different clans are set up in the longhouse and they're facing each other. So really the aspect is still the same. It's almost like a circle feel because everyone's facing inward, everyone's facing each other, and there's that support. So it can also mean relational balance or universal and cosmic balance. So what that kind of means in a nutshell is like the sun and the moon balance each other out, just as other aspects of creation work to balance and sustain our lives here. And then various aspects of creation work together in harmony to provide for us. So in my culture, there's a lot of talk about balance between dark and light, and the sun represents the light, the moon represents the dark. And then that's foundational in our creation story, but also there's two twins in our creation story, and they have very different perspectives. One is more of a good twin and more is considered like almost like an evil twin, but not really. It's just it's on a spectrum, it's a scale. So it's meant to illustrate that there needs to be those two perspectives, the day and the night, or the good and the bad, to balance out our lives here on Earth and make our lives whole and holistic.
Okay, so like I said, I'm not gonna show you the whole video. I encourage you to watch this on your own time, because there's quite a few concepts that they go through here. But what's really important about this is this idea that within Indigenous communities, we have our own ways of knowing and being and philosophies. You're not gonna necessarily have all those same philosophies and ways of being in the world, but I think in this space, we can come together in a respectful way to do work together that is meaningful. As I mentioned before I started the video, we've got a series of questions that will help the Indigenous Heritage Circle to think about how we move forward in the next steps of our work. So as I mentioned, we need someone to be a recorder. We'll go through each of these questions. Each person take a turn answering, please. Don't interrupt other people at your table. And you can pass if you don't feel comfortable speaking to that question. And those are kind of the ground rules. So I'm going to put the questions up. The members of the Indigenous Heritage Circle are here in the space, but we didn't want you to feel discomfort in expressing yourselves. So that's why we're not sitting with you. So if you have a question and you want to if you do have a question at your table, if there's a concern that comes up or something that you want us to help you with, this is like grade school, please feel free to sort of wave at us. Feel free to wave at us and we will totally come and chat with you a bit, but we're really hoping that this can be sort of your give back to us as being a participant here and having listened to us over the past few days. So I'll put the questions up for you. Alt tab. Oh gosh, not that one. Technology. Okay, there we go. So they're pretty basic. So the first question that we'd like you to address is, what concerns, barriers, or fears do you face in implementing UNDRIP in your work? The second question is, what steps are you taking already? And the third question is, what are you committed to individually or as an organization? And we realize that everybody is in a very different place within their organizations, their personal knowledge, but we do hope that, at least that very first question, that we'll get some good feedback, because that'll help us to address things like needs for training going forward, what types of information that we can put together for folks in this sector. And then also some of you might have best practices or promising practices to share with each other about what's already happening. And then of course we ask you for a commitment because that gives you something to go away with at the end, and you've made the commitment at your table. So hopefully you know some folks that are gonna hold you accountable to that at your table. Maybe not, but you can hold yourself personally accountable. So I'm gonna leave the questions up here. As I mentioned, we're here in the room. If you get to a point where you have a question or concern, please, wave at us. And again, with the circle work, the point is active listening. So we're asking that you start, one person speaks at a time and you make your way through your circle rather than back and forth across the circle. So there you go. Go. We're at almost 10 minutes after 4. What I'm hoping is people who are note takers have fairly clear handwriting, because I'm not going to make you report back from the tables. I'm not going to do that. But I do hope you'll give us your notes so that we can then compile those notes, and it's something that we'll provide back to the National Trust and that we will use as well. And it's sort of a first step in this conversation for us to say, okay, what are the things that are needed in this field so that this work can be implemented, which I think is sort of a really important next step. Like, of course, we want the federal government to ensure that UNDRIP is implemented in an equitable, community-directed way, both in heritage law and national museum policy. But then what happens after that, right? Because even if the law changes, if the people working in organizations don't understand how to do the work, isn't going to make that big a difference, right? And so it is very important for us to know what are your fears, what are your barriers, what are the things you think are going well. So I'm really grateful to all of you for coming to this session. I'm like sort of seeing some of the same faces over and over again, which is really lovely too. So for coming to the other sessions as well that we've held, I'm really grateful for that. And I hope that some of these questions you'll continue to think about as well. And of course, if you ever want to drop us a line, we're happy to hear from you. Don't ask us to consult. But yeah, if there are sort of successes that you're having, or if you're writing to your local MP about something and you want to CC us on it, I'm all about the CC pressure. Also passive aggressive journal article circulation. So you can please passive aggressively circulate our report to all of the people within your organizations. Hold your own reading sessions, right, with the people that you work with. Go over a section of the report each week with the people you work with. There's some simple steps to starting this work. It doesn't always have to be huge, right? But all of it is important. So Nyawagoa, great thanks, big thanks. The Goa part is like the big part. I free you into the world. Thank you.